we are continuing the imaginary dialogue that I have created between two of the great figures of the Old Testament, Moses and the prophet Isaiah. And we are continuing to place these two prophets together, and I would just remind you of my guiding idea within this series is that dialogue is even much deeper than a conversation, but that in dialogue there is a shared word that is spoken by two or more. So we begin by turning once more to the book of Exodus, and let us hear now from the word of our God. Then the Lord said to Moses, I am going to rain bread from heaven for you, and each day the people shall go out and gather enough for that day. In that way I will test them, whether they will follow my instructions or not. In the evening, quails came up and covered the camp, and in the morning there was a layer of dew around the camp. When the layer of dew lifted, there on the surface of the wilderness was a fine, flaky substance, as fine as the frost on the ground. When the Israelites saw it, they said to one another, What is it? For they did not know what it was. Moses said to them, It is the bread that the Lord has given you to eat. Now let us turn to the book of the prophet Isaiah, who addresses the people of Israel in this way. On this mountain, the Lord of hosts will make for all peoples a feast of rich food, a feast of well-aged wines, of rich food filled with marrow, of well-aged wines strained clear. And he will destroy on this mountain the shroud that is cast over all peoples, the sheet that is spread over all nations. He will swallow up death forever. Then the Lord God will wipe away the tears from all faces, and the disgrace of his people he will take away from all the earth. For the Lord has spoken. And it will be said on that day, Lo, this is our God. We have waited for him, so that he might save us. This is the Lord for whom we have waited. Let us be glad and rejoice in his salvation. Isn't it the case that when we gather together with friends or family, isn't it the case that we always usually have a meal together? Isn't that very common? George, I know you're shaking your head. Both Georges are shaking their heads. We have a meal together, we break bread together, and we know that there is a particular joy in that. George Clark, you are shaking your head. Why is it that we have a meal together when we gather?
Well, it's the joy of happiness, the joy of togetherness. You never know when next time we'll see each other.
Yeah.
And it's the joy of giving and happiness.
Wow, thank you, George. It is the joy, did you hear what George said? It is the joy of happiness. It's the joy of togetherness. Yes, indeed. There is something about gathering at a table and we experience the togetherness that comes when we eat. Now, George is a tremendous cook, and he cooks a lot for his family. So, George, you not only enjoy and appreciate getting together, I know that you, George, enjoy the creating of that time of togetherness, because over and over again, you're the one who cooks all kinds of good food for your family. So we hear that good word from George as someone who knows fully well what it is like to come together. I once heard a person say that when you eat with someone, when you share a meal together, they're your family. They're your family. Often we think of family as, of course, those who are most closely related to us, I guess you would say biologically. But this person had a beautifully expansive view of family, that anyone whom you invite for a meal, anytime you gather together and share food, that is family. I have never thought about eating and getting together at a table precisely this way. But isn't it so wonderful? There is something powerful. There is something powerful in coming together and eating together. They say us Baptists love to eat, and I think, Cheryl, you're shaking your head. We do enjoy our fellowship time together. We do enjoy having a meal together or coffee together. What is it? What do you feel when we get together in that way? What does it make you feel? Cheryl, what were you going to say? What does it make you? I'm sorry? It makes you feel full. I think it makes us, it certainly does. But I think that it deepens that fellowship in our midst when we do enjoy coffee hour, or when we do have a particularly special celebration. The idea of food, the idea of eating together, it's a binding experience. The idea of eating together, it creates a community. This is absolutely true within the Bible. Absolutely true. It's really, we shall see, one of the great moments when the people experience the goodness of God, and when they experience the presence of God and the way in which God is not only present, but God takes care of his people. The first story, book of Exodus. You know the story well, I'm sure. Once again, we find the people of the wilderness. The people of Israel are wandering in the wilderness. We've seen how they were thirsty. Now we see how they are hungry. And so, once again, Moses the prophet brings this concern to God, and God delivers once more with food. Once more. The people, they wake up in the morning and they see this substance on the ground. It's flaky, it's delicate. And they ask the question, now the question in Hebrew is Manna. What is it? So that substance that came from God has come to be called manna. It literally means, what is it? God sent this thin, flaky bread to the people of Israel, and they were fed. They were fed in the wilderness. They were sustained day after day because God intervened on their behalf, because God provided and met the needs of his people. And so in a very, very powerful way, the arrival of this bread, the arrival of this manna, it does bring that meeting between God and the people together. Perhaps we've never thought about food as that point in which God and God's people intersect. But certainly in this wilderness story, it's the case. When we turn to the book of the prophet Isaiah, Isaiah is speaking to the people in a time of great crisis, a time of great uncertainty, a time of deprivation. And Isaiah gets this good news from God, and he speaks to the people of Israel with this image of a mountain. You know Mount Sinai? so very, very important for the people of Israel. Now Isaiah speaks of this mountain and what's going to be on top of the mountain. Isaiah says, a banquet, a banquet. The Lord is going to invite the people up onto the mountain, and there they will be fed. There they will be fed. They will have food and drink. Now, this image that Isaiah is creating, it's really a beautifully poetic depiction of the way God is going to save his people. And once again, it involves the provision of food and drink for a people in need. Isaiah will go on, he will expand upon this, and he says that on this mountain, a shroud will be cast. Death will be swallowed up forever. There is something that is happening when this meal is shared, and that is this brand new life for the people of Israel. And then we hear how the people respond to this, and they say, "Lo, this is the Lord for whom we have waited. This is the one for whom we have waited, and we shall rejoice in his salvation." So right at that banquet table, something big is happening. It's not simply eating and drinking material things, but it is the experience of communion with God. Communion with God is that which we will celebrate in just a little bit. Communion with God that occurs when bread is broken and when the fruit of the vine is shared. And I think when we put Moses and Isaiah together in this dialogue, what would that shared word, what would that shared word be, perhaps? My thought is manna. They both are speaking of manna. They are both speaking of food as a sign and experience not only of the way in which God cares for the needs of our bodies, but the way in which food spiritually feeds us. The way in which this meal, this banquet on the mountaintop will make all things new. And that this meal on the mountaintop is a sign, as the people say, "This is the Lord for whom we have waited. We will rejoice in his salvation." And so, Jesus left us with a meal. Jesus left us with bread to break, the fruit of the vine to share. Perhaps we can approach this communion celebration in the very same way as the people of Israel did, recorded in the book of Exodus, recorded in the book of Isaiah, that the food that God brings is a powerful way in which God meets us. The food that God delivers is a powerful way in which heaven and earth come together. That's perhaps why that person said, when you eat together, you are family. Around this table, we eat and drink together. And truly, we are family. Now, what do we learn from this? What do we take from this wonderful experience of manna? In the Quaker tradition, within the big tent of the Christian faith, the Quakers don't celebrate communion in this particular way. Rather, the Quakers say that every meal can be appreciated as a communion celebration. Every time people eat together, there the Lord is present. So that is the first thing that I would share with you when we leave this place this morning. Every time we break bread together with family and friends, we can begin to appreciate that God is in the midst of that meal that we share. That God is in the midst of every meal, every time we gather around the table. Secondly, Vermillion, what were you going to say? Yes, at the table, Vermillion said that at the table, love and unity are experienced. Yes, love and unity at the table. And perhaps this would go very nicely into my second point, really, to understand that when you eat together, you are family, just as the people of Israel were family long ago, just as Jesus' disciples were family when they received that Last Supper. When we eat together, we are family. When you invite friends to your home or you receive an invitation to eat, you are family. Manna is the shared word in this dialogue. It reminds us that God meets our needs, and it reminds us that God is present as God meets those needs of body and soul. And so, we can keep that in mind, truly. We can keep that in mind, truly, that every meal is a moment for communion with our God. And that every meal is an opportunity, as Vermillion has said, to delight in the love and unity that a shared table brings. This is something that I believe is just so beautiful and so powerful. It really makes our spiritual lives palpable, material, concrete. This idea of the sharing of the bread and of the cup, it brings this spiritual reality into something that we can hold, something that we can taste, and something that nourishes both body and soul. So now, very soon, we will gather at this communion table. It is a place of love and unity. It is a place where we discover God anew. And it is a place in which we discover and affirm that we are indeed sister and brother. And so, Manna, what is it? It is heavenly food that comes from our God. Manna, what is it? It is a sign of the enduring grace of God. Manna, what is it? It is a sign that God is with us and that God will nourish body and soul.